I just saw Michael, and I must say choosing to race swap John Travolta was a bold move. Look at this footage and tell me you don't see how this is just a race swapped remake. They look identical. Alright, so the Michael movie ends before Dangerous comes out, which means no Will You Be There and no Free Willy references, 0 stars. Alright, jokes aside, I have some mixed feelings about Michael. On one hand, this isn't really a movie with a clear narrative or even much in the way of character development. On the other hand, there is a fair amount of big screen spectacle, and it of course has a killer soundtrack. Let's start with some of my negatives. I'll try and keep it short. Well, as short as I can. I'm constantly being told how verbose I am, and it's true. The movie does a good job establishing the Jacksons in Indiana, and Coleman Domingo strikes quite the imposing figure early on. As the movie progresses, though, and Michael gains more individual wealth and power, the movie drops the ball on how the physical abuse suffered at an early age sort of translates to the more psychological abuse in his adult life. I blame the movie for taking its foot off the gas with Domingo's Joseph too much, which is a shame. Domingo is such a charismatic actor with such screen presence, and I kept waiting for him to get that one big Oscar bait scene to chew on, and it just never happened. This is an issue for two reasons. One, it diminishes the narrative arc of the film by losing focus on how imposing the man is supposed to be, hence Michael not just noping out of his family. The second issue is that without that constant menace, his scenes that we do get, they don't really have much weight to them. Like there's one with Don King, for example, right? And you feel like, oh, right, Joseph is still doing Joseph stuff. But like I said, there's no weight to it. He's more of a mosquito than bee. He comes across as annoying but harmless, and considering Michael's relationship with Joseph is about as close to a plot structure as we get in this movie, it needed more focus and depth. So I found that to be a little disappointing. This movie was produced by one of the Bohemian Rhapsody producers, and I did not expect this movie to be accurate, and it flirts with inaccuracy and with some events, and I mean, quite frankly, Janet Jackson isn't even in the movie, per her own request is what I've heard. But there's really not enough for me to be truly put off by inaccuracies in this. For example, the movie makes it seem like Off the Wall was his first solo album, but that's a small issue, and it fits fine for what little narrative we are provided. There are some clever nods to real-life issues that would plague Jackson later on, and they're handled with a wink to the audience with a sort of, if you know, you know, without getting too heavy, which I appreciated. The movie really is more interested in the music and performances, and most scenes just serve to loosely connect the bare-bones plot to the incredible body of work Jackson is so famous for. And this is where the movie really shines. Jafar Jackson is amazing as Michael. He embodies his uncle so well that there were so many moments that I forgot I was watching, an actor and not actually just watching concert footage. The way he moves and his expressions, it's outstanding work from this young man. If you're a fan of the music and the stage presence of Michael Jackson, this movie does not disappoint. Everyone walked out of the theater humming and singing. It was just such a fun theater experience, The movie was worth the price of admission just for that feeling alone. It was really something. I had a good time. The movie is a little longer than it needs to be, though. 2-hour runtime could have been trimmed down, especially if we're not getting those heavier emotional beats with Joseph and Michael. The ending of the movie, it needed to be reshot for legal reasons, is what I've heard, and honestly knowing that makes the ending a little more confusing and frustrating. Minor spoiler for the movie, but you could Google it. The movie opens with Michael walking down the corridor about to go on stage, and he is dressed as an iconic bat attire. He walks into the light and it flashes back to his childhood. At the end of the movie, he concludes his Jackson 5 tour by telling everyone it'll be the last one and walking away from Joseph. It then skips back to him in the bat attire and walking again. He steps into the light, and I would have ended the movie there. His story continues. And then over the end credits, I would have had him do the live bad performance. Instead, we sit through the whole performance just to get to the credits. Feels very tacked on. The emotional beat of walking away after that spectacular human nature sequence, I might add, with the Jackson 5 was a great way to end the movie. His solo bad works, like I said, more as an end credit sequence, but to sit through 2 concert sequences back to back, it felt a bit much. And it kind of undercuts the beat they were going for by having him perform on his own. He's already been performing on his own, Just didn't work for me. Though it sounds like I'm being negative, I really did have a good time with the movie. I'm just frustrated that it wasn't a better movie. I loved Michael Jackson growing up, and we all know what headlines are coming in the sequel and all that drama from real life, and I wanted this to be a real solid base for the inevitable, covering the warts and all part that will be in the second one. This movie just wasn't that movie. My friend and I were discussing sequel titles, and she believes it will be called Jackson, so the 2-part disc says Michael Jackson. I think there's a strong chance for that. Personally, I would call it Michael Heal the World. He mentions music changing the world and him being a healer a couple times throughout the movie. Oh, and one last thing before I go. If they don't start the sequel with a bombastic interpretation of his Super Bowl show, what are we even doing, people? Anyways, those are my thoughts on Michael. Like I said, I had a good time with it. I'll see the sequel when it comes out. I just wish it was a little more full-bodied movie. I wish they had stuck more with Joseph and Michael's kind of like that had been like the through line through it a little stronger. Because, like I said, it feels like a series of Wikipedia articles, almost like, all right, film this. Here's your script. Go. But that's just me. What do you guys think? How would you like to see the sequel? What do you think it should be called? And do you agree with me that it should start with the Super Bowl show? Let me know. And anyways, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you guys on the flippy floppy, as the cool kids say.